Yeah, I remember back when I was little and my dad got a new pickup truck and he got air conditioning in it, and he thought that was a big deal at the time. I guess apparently that was an option maybe at some point, but I don't feel like when I was a little kid it was that much of an option.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like standard on every car now. Hello and welcome to the Gathering Greenhouse, a podcast to grow together. And David is trying to ruin my intro. It is morning somewhere. Yes, that's true.
It's also 5 o'clock somewhere. So
yeah.
We should make this a better podcast.
Yeah.
Have
you ever flown over the international date line before?
No.
If you ever want to get to redo the day that you just had, if you had a bad day,
yeah, that would not work.
Have you ever been?
What do you mean it won't work? You could change the date just like that.
I was just talking to somebody who was gonna be near the international date line, and they were gonna send me like who wins games.
Yeah,
because I'll be a day ahead.
Yeah, the weird thing about
bet on them,
having to travel over the international date line. So I think I maybe did it twice I know for sure when we traveled to China, I had to do that. But you also because of the curvature of the Earth, they fly further north and come back down because it's a shorter distance, which is weird that they figured that out and can do that.
Well, it's a globe.
I knew you'd say that. I knew you were gonna say that. It's just common now. It's just common.
And at the bottom.
Yeah, but until
Steve
you actually
reveals that he's a flat earther.
Until you travel it, you don't think about it. Okay, I knew you were gonna have that reaction to it. It's a common. People watching, just a common reaction when I just want to have a conversation with David. Okay, so I have something planned.
Well, I think in your mind you think that everybody thinks just like you.
They don't?
And so you say these
John
things.
John says that John always agrees with. John always agrees.
Well, he should. But then I think your assumption is that I don't think differently than you, and so when I think differently than you, you're always surprised by it. I'm like, well, no.
No, see, I'm not surprised by that. I'm surprised that we can't just be like, oh yeah, that's interesting, and we move on. That's the part. Because that's how I usually react when someone tells someone.
I'll work on that.
Don't work on it. Just be who you are, David.
All right, that's interesting. Let's move on.
Thank you. Okay. Anyway, so I stopped at my local gas station.
That's interesting.
Thank you.
Let's move on.
And the reason I brought these in today is because way back when we did some other ones that I got from there, someone's like, you have to try the Hostess coffee cakes.
Yeah, that is interesting.
They said that they were the best. You don't want to try these? It says baked with real cinnamon.
That's interesting.
Okay. Now, what is that streusel, like a strudel? What would you say that word is right there?
I believe it's streusel. Aren't you German?
I thought we just covered this already. I'm Italian.
We did. Aren't they the same? Like they partnered up in World War II and they've been the same ever since,
there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's move on.
You don't want to try it? Okay. So here, I'm going to give you one. Just because someone said they were really worth a try, I thought I'd get one for us.
Well, let's guess what they're going to be like.
Okay. But the packages are confusing because
very spongy.
It says a coffee cake, but then it says cinnamon streusel.
I think that's the flavor
is that the same?
of the coffee cake.
Okay. I didn't know you could have a streusel flavor.
Apparently you can.
What are we guessing?
I think it's going to be spongy.
Okay.
Right? I think it's going to be overly moist.
I was just going to say that. I think it's going to be very, very moist.
But they have to do that because that thing, that's probably been in a package for 3 years already.
There's no clues on the package.
They don't dry out for a decade.
All right. Here, I'm just going to have you guess here. What is the number one ingredient?
Oh, the number one. Flour?
Okay. I'm going to have to grab the second half of the package because I think I ripped it.
That's interesting.
It looks like... No. In fact, the number one ingredient is not flour. The number one ingredient is sugar. The number two ingredient is flour. So there's more sugar in here than flour. Right. So maybe just take a bite.
Okay.
Very sugary.
It's very interesting.
It's very sweet. I think it's got a little too much sugar, in my opinion.
Well, the question is, I think if you get past the outside and just get into the cake exterior, that won't be as sugary.
It's got a nice flavor, though.
There is just like you just look at it and it's been sugared up.
Yeah. Would you actually buy one of these if you were looking for something?
I
sweet?
wouldn't, but it's not bad.
Yeah. It's not my favorite Hostess item, but it's not
What
bad.
is your favorite Hostess item?
Well, I think that changes from time to time.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. But my favorite, I'm not gonna say. I guess when I say Hostess, I mean like snack cake. I love you know this already, but I love the Christmas trees.
Yeah.
Those are probably my favorite. And I heard that they made a Christmas tree ice cream, but you can only get it at Walmart. I don't know how these stores get these exclusives, but
I mean, why would you, if you wanted to sell like a flavored ice cream? Yeah, I'll tell you why. I know why.
Money?
No, because it's just so. So let's start with the Christmas trees themselves.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
There's a little hype around it.
There's a certain kind of person that doesn't buy any food at a gas station.
Okay. What kind of person is that?
You know, the super fit people. There's just people who say so. People will say never fuel your car and your body at the same place. Have you ever heard that?
No, it's the
Now
first
you
time
have.
I've heard it.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it?
That's because I get gas at Kroger.
Well, that is where the problem comes in.
Have you ever bought anything at the Kroger convenience store or gas station, like those like coolers they have? Have you?
Yep.
I never have.
Stresses me
Yeah.
out.
Okay. Question number 1 for you today.
Let's try these new cakes.
Well, these are so good.
These are so wonderful. Okay, on a Sunday, or not on a Sunday, on Sunday, you said hurry and worry go hand in hand. And those things also rhyme, which makes it more memorable. So here's
That's
the question.
interesting.
Here's the question. Here's the question. Is that always true? And is it ever okay to hurry?
Yeah, good question. So that's actually a great question because it allows me to talk about something else.
Yeah.
So, when I preach on a Sunday or anytime, you only have so much time.
Yeah.
So 30 minutes, right? That's generally how much time I have at the gathering. You can't say everything in 30 minutes, and you also don't have time to maybe give as many disclaimers as you want to give. So whenever you preach, there's an assumption there that people are going to be reasonable and are going to I know, right? Maybe not a great assumption, but that people are going to be reasonable and are going to understand that there are a lot of times when you say something that is generally true, but not necessarily always true. Right. So there are some people who will go to church and their whole reason for being there is to find something they disagree with. And that's super easy to do. So you can always find that. Yeah. So like on this Sunday when I said, hurry and worry go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And, hurry is often the result of worry, and worry, causes us to hurry, all that stuff. Certainly somebody could have been sitting there who is one of these disagreeable types, and I don't know if we have any of them at the gathering or not. But, if someone was one of these disagreeable types, they would very easily sit there and say, well, there are times when you have to hurry, and it's not because you're worried, and so this guy's wrong, and he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And then just discount everything else I say.
Yeah.
That's a super easy thing to do. So, preachers have to just often assume and in some ways depend on the people who are listening to be reasonable and to understand that not everything I say is an absolute 100% all the time.
Yes.
Rock solid foundation principle of life.
Right.
So, there
are exceptions to the rule.
There are usually exceptions. We live in a world that is exceptional, and so there are sometimes exceptions.
Yeah.
Now, hurry and worry. They very, very often go hand in hand. And so I off the top of my head, I was trying to think of what are some illustrations of a time when you might hurry that you're not worried. I'm not sure I can come up with one.
Well, I got a couple.
All right, let's go.
Well, so like hurry.
Well, hold on. Before you give your illustrations, I got to give the second piece.
Okay,
of this.
yeah.
that worry might not always be wrong.
Yeah.
So
of course.
sometimes you might be hurrying because you're worried about something you should be worried about. So all
Yeah.
right, now let's talk about it.
Like missing the bus. So like we're in a hurry sometimes in the morning. So
Okay,
that,
and you're worried that you might
so
miss the bus.
no, I'm saying we're saying when hurry is not attached to worry.
Right.
So we're in a hurry and we're not worried that we're going to miss the bus, but we realize how much time we have.
Then why
and what
are
we
you
need-
hurrying?
Because we know how much time we have to get everything done to get the kids on the bus sometimes.
And if you don't hurry, you will.
If you don't hurry, you won't make the bus.
So you're worried. This is
Yeah. But I'm not so
It's not a bad worry. It's a true worry. It's an accurate worry, but
Yeah.
it's still when I defined worry on Sunday, maybe you weren't in there for that service. I don't know if I did in all three services. Worry is anytime we're concerned that we might miss something.
Yeah.
Or we might miss out on something. So that's not a bad worry to be worried to miss the bus.
Yeah.
But that's why you're hurrying.
Well, I'm guessing like so we're not worried that we're going to miss the bus, but we have to hurry. I feel like those two things are separate.
What's the difference between the momentary feeling of worry versus the attitude of worry?
Yeah, because I feel like what John is saying. What I was saying,
Right.
like we don't have an attitude of worry. We're not worried about it, but we have a sense of urgency.
You're
that
not
we need to
stressed.
get done.
You're not
Yeah,
stressed
we're not-
about it. You're not anxious about it. But
No.
that's why that's why I had to. Again, we're right back to where
Yeah.
we started.
Yeah.
Is I had to put a definition on worry.
Yeah.
And the definition I put on it is you're worried. You're concerned that you're going to miss something.
Yeah,
That doesn't mean that it's always wrong. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there are times when we should be concerned about missing things. Mother's Day is coming up,
Mm-hmm.
and people should be concerned about missing that. And so, if you find yourself on Saturday and you've not done something yet, you should hurry. That's an appropriate hurry and it's an appropriate worry, but they're still connected. So I think what you're talking about. I think you've taken worry and said it's stress and anxiety.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for my definition on Sunday,
Okay.
I wasn't necessarily equating the two, but was saying one leads to the other.
I do my fair share of worrying.
Really?
So
That's interesting.
doesn't sound like you think it's interesting. I think you know me well enough.
Are you worried about that?
That's a very deep question. Let's get coffee sometime
All right. So
and enjoy our coffee cakes.
So
John is worried.
So the
This
answer
might have to do with John.
The answer to the original question
Yeah.
is: are hurry and worry always connected? I'm not sure. They might be. It probably depends on how you define worry.
Yeah.
Right. But is there ever a good time to hurry? Absolutely, there is. Right. And I would give the illustration of you see a kid walking out into the road.
Yeah.
You should absolutely hurry to get them keep them from running. And that is driven by worry, but it's a real and legitimate worry. And so there's nothing wrong with it.
Okay.
All right.
So to sum this up here, because we went off on a few tangents and we were just trying to decide what, worry and hurry were. So is it possible to be in a hurry and not worry? Like, do those two things always have to be attached?
I don't know. I'm inclined to say no, but like I said, I think it depends on how you define worry.
Okay.
So if you can recognize there's a difference between worry and stress.
Yeah.
I think that's key. That you can be worried about something, and we usually have a negative
Yeah. Hurry
piece of worry. But
hurry often leads to worry regardless of how you define it, right? I think that it has a great potential for hurry and busyness to create worry that causes stress and anxiety. Those two things work together.
yes, they go hand in hand.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. My next question here. What is the most important principle you want people to remember about this sermon series about the Sabbath? What's the most important thing?
I think the most important thing is,
Yeah.
is the foundational truth, right? So the foundational truth of Sabbath is that God provides. It's really hard for us to rest and recharge if we don't believe that God is going to provide.
Yeah.
Like if we're completely self-reliant and have this idea that the only way I'm going to get what I need is if I work for it, if I hurry for it, right? Then I'm not going to be able to rest and recharge. So it's really important to recognize that God provides and to be able to rest in that. And if I can rest in that, then I can learn to recharge.
Yeah. So something that I have taken out of this sermon series is just like our conversations just about busyness and how our society values busyness. And maybe not even value necessarily that they attach busyness with success or busyness with, you have a life that is like full, all of those things of understanding that for me, like I have a lot of attachment to like busyness, just staying busy and feeling like I am a productive person. Just being able to, like realize the moments when I'm feeling that and doing those things and say like, hey, it's okay to not be busy. And I know that like busyness can lead to hurry as well, because if you feel like, you always should be doing something, then you're going to end up hurrying.
Right. Are you ready for something really interesting?
Yes, I am.
So busyness and productivity are not necessarily linked.
No, they're actually not. They're actually can be, the more busy you are, the less productive you can be.
And here's the stat to back it up.
Okay.
So I just read an article this weekend that we now, for 5 consecutive quarters in America, and I don't know exactly how they measure productivity, but there's like a formula to measure the productivity of the entire American workforce. And for 5 consecutive quarters now, we have dipped. We've gone down in productivity. That has never happened in the history of them measuring productivity, that for 5 consecutive quarters. And this is at a time when we are the busiest and when we glorify busyness and we're less productive.
Yeah. So why are we at our busiest right now?
We're not.
Okay.
We just like to say that we are.
Okay. So you're saying like as a, society, we are at our busiest.
We glorify busyness and we try to make ourselves look busy and seem busy. There was another study I read, and I can't remember all the details, but it measured the fake productivity that was being created in the workplace right now. Yeah. And it identifies that this, again, is at an all-time high where people are doing things to make themselves appear busy even though they're not, because we value, it would appear that we value busyness over productivity now. We absolutely value the appearance of busyness over hard work, which is, a whole nother sermon maybe I could have preached on this Sabbath series.
Yeah, true. Okay, great insights there. The next question is, so this Sunday is child dedication.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
Yep.
Both of my kids dedicated here. And the question is, why do we do that? Why do we do child dedication? We talked a little bit about this a couple weeks ago, but why does the gathering do child dedication?
One of the things we've lost in our Western culture is milestones in the development of children moving into adulthood. We've really lost the traditions of these moments where you say, okay, now this is what's happening. And for like 12-year-olds, we don't do anything for 12-year-olds to say, hey, you're now moving into adulthood. I think the closest thing we have is getting a driver's license. Yeah. And that becomes like the big moment. Okay, you got your driver's license, so now you're an adult. I think we need to try to get back to that, and we need to try to create milestones that just give us something to look back on and say, hey, here was a moment in time when something really significant happened. So, for example, if you're in the Jewish tradition, the boys do their bar mitzvahs. That's fantastic because it may or may not mean anything at the moment for the boy, but later in life, it becomes something they can look back on and say, that was a meaningful moment. And so we as a church are actually working on some things to create that for kids later in life. So 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, we're working on some stuff to say, hey, we're going to create these milestones for kids that at least have to do with their spiritual journey. I think the child dedication is kind of like that first milestone. It's that point in time when the parents say, we really think that our child's spiritual development is important. And even though they're not going to remember this, I mean, some of them might be old enough to remember, but for the most part, they're not going to remember this. We want to have this very first milestone where this is the beginning. This is where we launch our child's spiritual journey. And even though they don't understand right now what's happening, we're making this commitment that moving forward from here on out, we're going to invest everything we have into making sure that our children grow up to follow Jesus. And so we're creating that milestone for parents, for families. And so I think that's one of the reasons it's important, is it gives them that thing to look back on to say, that was a really important moment when our child's spiritual journey began.
Yeah. Great. So if someone's, watching and listening right now and, they want to take part in it, is there still time
to take part? Yeah, absolutely. So if you're watching this, and if it's still before Mother's Day, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, even as late as Friday, if you're watching this on Friday, you can still sign up. We'll make it work. The way to sign up is to go to the Church Center app.
Yep.
Can we put a link in the description here? We'll put a link in the description you can just click on, and it will take you right to the form you need to fill out. Now, if you do sign up on Friday, I will do my best to get you all the information you need, but just make sure you just show up on Sunday, and we'll have everything ready for you.
Yeah. So what is this significance? So it's a really significant moment for like the family. It's a significant moment for the child. But what does it mean for child dedications, for just like the person sitting in the audience, the average regular attender that comes to the gathering? What does child dedication mean for them?
Yeah, so there's two pieces of that.
Yeah.
The first is that it's a powerful reminder of why we're here. We are here to continue to disciple the next generation.
Yeah.
And so, we sometimes forget about that. It's like, well, let's throw the kids in the nursery so they don't disturb us while we have church.
Yeah.
And we forget that the whole reason we're doing this is so that we will continue to pass the faith from generation to generation to generation. So anytime we have our children up front and visible, it's a really powerful reminder of our purpose. Secondly, it's a chance for us as a church to have that milestone as well, where we commit. And one of the things I'll say on Sunday is I'll say to the church, will you promise that as often as God reminds you, you'll pray for these kids?
Yeah.
And I hope people take that seriously, that, if they're doing whatever, driving to work on Thursday, and all of a sudden this memory pops into their mind of church, and they're like, oh yeah, I made that promise to pray for those kids, that they'll stop right then and pray for those kids.
Yeah.
Because I think it's an important commitment that we make, that we want to not just pray for those parents, but resource them. So when we give financially to the church, we're actually giving to resource the spiritual development of those kids, to give our energy. So for a lot of people, maybe this is a challenge to go serve in kids ministry or serve in the student ministry, because that's why we're doing it. So I think it's those two things. It's a reminder of what our purpose is, and then it's a call for us to make a commitment to be part of that process.
Yeah. Okay. Next question for you here is, can you give us one hint about how not to raise a serial killer? And for those who are listening, that is our next sermon series that we have coming up. It's starting this coming Sunday.
Yep. So how not to raise a serial killer.
Yeah.
One hint. Sure. So not this Sunday, but the following Sunday, which I think is May 21, we're going to talk about how important it is that you are intentional as a parent. I think one of the struggles that parents have is wanting to kind of just hope everything works itself out, right?
Yeah, right.
And I hear increasingly more and more, especially with older kids, that they need to figure this out for themselves.
Yeah.
No, they don't.
Can we talk about that mentality for a second of hoping everything works out? Because I think you hit on a really important piece of that, of like, we wouldn't do that in a lot of other areas of life, but there is a tendency to say, this idea of like, I did my best, or, there's certain things I can't control, so I'm just going to let it happen. So what does that mean to you as far as, hope for the best?
Well, I don't want to give away the whole sermon.
Okay, so that's a key, that's an important part of the sermon.
I'll say this.
Yeah.
Henry Cloud, in his book Necessary Endings, talks about this idea that the hope we have in Christ is awesome.
Yeah.
But hope for the future, like as a strategy, is terrible.
Yeah.
Right. So just to say, well, I hope this works out. Well, that's terrible. If you have any kind of ability to impact situation, you ought to take that opportunity.
I feel like you're obligated. Like that's part of being a parent.
Well, right.
You don't necessarily sign up for it, but it is part of the package.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple reasons why parents sometimes have this mentality of, well, I hope this works out, or I need to let my kid figure this out on their own. I think one of the reasons is just because it's hard, right? It's sometimes it's hard to clash with your kid. And so parents will just decide, I'm not going to do it because, my kid is stubborn, my kid is difficult, whatever it might be. So I'm not going to make the effort to clash with my kid. I was just telling someone the other day, it is so important, parents, that you win. I mean, I know that sounds terrible, but you have to win. If your kid wins, you're having an 8-year-old make life-changing decisions and create life-changing habits that are going to hold them back the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So you have to win, even if it's hard. So that's
So can you clarify what you mean by win?
I'll talk about it more.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what I mean is, don't let your child rule the house.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Because they'll destroy themselves.
Yeah.
They'll destroy their future.
Like, I don't want to eat my vegetables. I don't want to do my homework. I don't want,
Yeah, stuff like that. I mean, the vegetables thing,
you let them win on it.
Well, I think, so interestingly, this is one of those places where you got to know when and where to take a stand, right?
Yeah.
So vegetables. Yes, your kids should eat their vegetables. But, there's this clean plate club, right? Well, if you don't eat all of your vegetables, you can't play anymore tonight. Well, it is important that they eat their vegetables, but why make that the battle you're going to fight over, right? So maybe you look at the plate, hey, you did a good job, you ate some of your vegetables, way to go.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Don't create fights that aren't worth winning.
Yeah.
Like maybe doing the homework is a fight that's worth winning because that's kind of setting a pattern of behavior that will continue to go on through life. So just pick your battles, but win your battles.
Right.
And that's why you don't want to pick stupid battles.
Yeah. Good point. Yes.
Yeah. Well, so one of the reasons parents say, I hope this works out is because it's hard and they don't want to dive into that hardness. One is it's unpopular. It is now popular to, popular parenting is, well, let your kids figure this out. Just be easy on them. Don't discipline them. Just let it all go. And that's a whole other week in the series.
Yeah.
We're gonna take a whole week to talk about what it means to discipline your kids and what the appropriate way to discipline your kids is. And we're gonna look at the verse in Proverbs that says, don't spare the rod.
Yeah.
So we're gonna actually talk about what that means. But all that to say, it's not popular to be a strong parent anymore. And so a lot of parents, I don't want to be a strong parent. I want to be, unpopular. So I think that's one of the other reasons. And I think another reason that is sad is that parents look at their own mistakes. I think this happens a lot with teenagers. And parents say things like, well, I did that when I was a kid, so who am I to tell them not to do it? I don't want to be a hypocrite.
Yeah.
And to that, I would say, you're not being a hypocrite. Right? What you're doing is you're saying, I made this mistake.
Yeah.
Here's how it negatively impacted me. I don't want you to make the same mistake, so I'm not going to let you make the same mistake. I remember having a conversation with Liam once where I said, look, what you just did today is something you inherited from me, which I inherited.
Yeah.
And I don't know how far back this family line this trait goes.
Yeah.
But you're going to be where it ends. Right? I don't want you to take this and carry it on. And so let's talk about why you did this, because it's something that you get from me. And now let's not do it anymore. And we talked through that. Now this when he was older, you can't have that conversation with a 3-year-old. Right? 3-year-old, you say no.
Yeah.
Right? But with your 12, 15-year-old, you can have those conversations. And instead of just saying, well, I can't tell them what to do because I did it myself, say, no, I did it myself. I'm not glad I did it. It was bad for me. So no, I'm not going to let you do this.
Yeah. That actually, as you're talking about that, kind of brings up some of a quote that I heard that I really appreciated as a parent. And I feel like it's very true. It's that parents often explain too much when kids are little and don't explain enough when they're older. Like they get into this mentality of like, I said so because I said so when kids get older. And that's when you need to explain the why more. Like the kids probably don't want to listen to it because teenagers think their parents don't know anything. But being able to like I always say like to be a voice in whatever is going on in your kids' lives. Like they may not at the time hear and accept it and do it, but they're going to get an education on life whether you give it to them or not. They're going to get it somewhere. It just takes one kid on the bus, a cell phone somewhere. Kids are going to figure things out, but you want to be that voice within the difficult life challenges that they face.
Can I make an observation on that?
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, I know we're running long probably, but
we're
I
fine.
think this is important. So one of the reasons that's hard for parents is because parents have a hard time, like we're talking to teenagers now, having conversations with their kids. And if the only conversations you ever have are me saying, you can't do that, and we can talk about why. Kids don't want to have those conversations. So what parents have to do is they've got to earn the right to have those conversations. And I hate saying earn the right because that's the wrong word. But they have to get the field ready to plant those seeds by having good conversations. So that means parents, listen, if you want to have the authority to speak into your kids' lives and have them listen to you when they're doing something wrong, then you need to have conversations with them when they're doing something right. And you just need to have fun conversations. So tell them to put their phones down. Tell them to shut the video game off, turn the TV off, and have a conversation. And even if it's a conversation about nothing, the reason you're having that conversation is so you can have a more important conversation later.
Yeah.
So.
Or fine. I mean, I think definitely turn the TV off, put the cell phone down, all that. Or find things that your kids love doing and maybe you can at least appreciate. You don't have to necessarily love it, but find things you have in common with them and do those things. Like for me and my dad, it was like we both love going to movies. Like there's not a whole lot of conversation there, but we'd have conversations before or after. Yeah. And you just got to find something where you can meet them on their ground and build that rapport and relationship. Then you can speak into their lives. And sometimes when you screw up as a parent, it's more powerful conversation to go to your kid and say, hey, this is how I screwed up. I'm sorry. I apologize. I feel like those are really memorable moments for little kids of like, wow, my dad did what he showed that he had screwed up. And that's a really cool thing. I think there's a lot of great life lessons in just as a parent, we don't have to be perfect.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Do you really think that's interesting?
Well, no, you just told me that's what I had to say.
Oh, well, thank you.
I haven't said it in a while.
Great. Well, do we have anything else? Yeah.
A really important question.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds like it's not going to be important.
I already know what it is.
Did you guys plan to wear the same shirt? And were you is it a result of you guys worrying that, if you don't match, it would be bad, or was it because you were both in a hurry?
I'm going to let David answer this question first.
So my answer is pretty simple, right? I wear a hoodie every time we do this podcast, right? Every time. And I think you go back in the files, you can see I have worn a hoodie for every single podcast. And I wear Columbia stuff a good portion of the time. I don't think anybody, would argue with that. So I feel like maybe I'm being stalked. Like it's like one of those creepy movies where like I'm gonna end up dead somewhere, and Steve's gonna pretend to be me, and he's gonna show up at the office and tell everybody that he's me.
They say imitation is the best form of
flattery. Oh, that's true. Yeah.
When does that cross the line into being creepy?
This morning.
I don't mind being like David because I think you're a great leader, but I think that. That was the most David answer I've heard from you throughout this whole. It was just like,
well, that's interesting.
That's a very classic David answer. But so so I actually love this shirt and this material. It's actually a little bit different.
What is yours?
I knew you were going to say, "Is it felt?" I know. See, I knew you were going to ask me that question too. But I really like this. This one is a. It says Omni Freeze, which is just their cooling technology that they have. Yours says Omni Shade. So I guess maybe it's a little bit different. But this has on the inside, it's like a little bit raised there. So it does actually, believe it or not, it does keep you a little bit cooler. So I like this shirt a lot. Maria does not like it. Every time I wear it, she's like, "Why are you wearing that shirt?" But
Why don't you listen to your wife?
it fits me well, and I feel like half of the way a shirt looks good on you is if it fits you right or not.
Does Maria think it fits you well?
She's never mentioned that at all.
Have you ever asked her why she doesn't like it?
Yes, I have. Can I remember what she said? Not completely.
So we're going to do a quick marriage segment on the podcast about listening to your spouse.
So I have a Columbia PFG, which is pro
You
fishing
notice
gear.
that Steve has not been willing to engage this whole conversation from the stalking me to the creeping on me.
I'm not stalking you. I'm not creeping on you. What else do you want me to answer?
Well, that's interesting.
I listen to my wife.
He picks his battles.
Yeah, I choose my battles. I listen to her. I just can't remember. It wasn't a super memorable.
Look, if your wife says don't ever wear that shirt again,
She could be wrong, though. It's possible.
My wife
Her opinion on it.
bought me 2 fishing shirts.
Yeah.
She bought them for me. And then every time I wear them, she says, "You can't wear those out in public." But she bought it.
Yeah, I find that I have.
I must
shirts
have the
like
best wife in the world because I don't have any stories like this.
that. Do you talk to your wife?
Yeah, all the time.
He just looks good in everything he wears. That's what.
I just
I don't
whatever.
know. That's not what I hear from Marianne.
If she tells me not to wear something, I don't. I just know she's got a better eye for that stuff than I do.
So do you ever? Here's my question about the pro fishing gear. Like, do you fish?
How much does someone have to fish to consider that they fish?
Yeah, good point on that. I think that you need to fish on a regular basis, which I don't know exactly what that means. Maybe
So-
once, maybe 3-4 times a month when it's nice.
That's an
Four.
awful lot.
You think that's an awful
3
lot?
or 4 times a month?
Yeah. Mhm.
No, I don't fish that much.
Okay. How much do you think to enjoy fishing?
Well, I don't enjoy fishing.
Okay. Yeah. There's some people who absolutely love it.
Oh, I know, but not
Yeah.
me.
So are they marketing to the people who like fishing, or are they just marketing to people who, enjoy that style, like fishing style of clothing?
I think that there's like a crossover kind of thing, right? It's like
Yeah.
you might wear shoes that are made to play tennis in, but they're comfortable, so
Yeah.
you wear them to walk in.
Yeah.
Or you might wear
Running shoes.
running shoes. You might wear like canvas work pants, but you don't wear them to work in. You just because they're comfortable.
Cargo
So-
shorts. You need the
Yep,
extra pockets.
Sure. Yep. All that. So I think fishing gear. I think people who like the outdoors just
Yeah.
say, "Hey, fishing gear. That's it's good clothing to wear outdoors. It protects you from the sun. It cools you sometimes, depending on what you're wearing. So yeah,
Very good answer. It's like very.
was it the
thought
most
through.
David answer ever?
No, it was not. That
Well,
was a
that's
great
interesting.
answer. That was a great answer. Great. Well, thanks for spending some time with us today. And I hope that you all are looking forward to child dedication this Sunday and our next sermon series that is coming up. And I'm sure that we'll have a lot more great conversations that go along with how do you raise a serial killer.
Yeah. Yeah. This was interesting.
It was. Have a great day. Bye.